So just want to speak briefly about the situation in Gaza. It's the most violent turmoil since the 2014 war, and it just seems like history repeating itself over and over and over again when it comes to the Holy Land. It just seems to never change. Um, from my perspective, I think Hamas has a lot to answer for in terms of the unrest. Now, I'm not on the ground. I cannot say that I think Israel is entirely innocent. I can't say that. I'm not on the ground. But based on what I've seen, it's very clear that what Hamas done was organize groups of predominantly young men, some women as well, to go to the border with Israel with the intent of causing as much violence and disruption as possible. Um, and by burning tires, well, leaving aside the huge environmental damage that's going to cause, but by burning tires, the object was to obscure the IDF vision and infiltrate the border. Now, if you look around the world, it's very difficult to conceive a situation where any other country would tolerate such a flagrant breach of its border. And what I would say is, no matter what people think of the sovereignty of this area, and of course that's the crux of the argument, to suggest that Israel should just stand by and allow that is clearly absurd. Someone pointed out that there were 2,000 injuries, right? And about between 55 and 60 deaths. Now, if the IDF soldiers were shooting to kill, or if that was the primary objective, then I think a lot more people would be dead. As bad as the situation is, I think, put it this way, Israel is a strong country militarily. It's a small country, but the IDF is well known for being a very proportionally strong military because it's backed by Washington. But there is a point with that. The IDF and Israel has the capability to kill thousands of Palestinians if it wanted to. So those who throw around terms like genocide are ignoring the fact that, well, aside from the fact it's a really crude misuse of the word. I mean, this situation is not comparable to what has happened historically in Burundi, in Rwanda, in Cambodia, in Bosnia, and other examples. It's not comparable in Matabele land and in the Mugabe regime. I don't think Israel is above criticism, but every single time we see Palestinian deaths, there is a background to that, which is that Palestinian militant groups, their sole objective is attacking Israel. I don't think they give a damn about the welfare of their people. I have no doubt that Gaza is one of the most dismal places in the world. I have no doubt that life there is very, very difficult. But I believe that a lot of that dies at the hands of Palestinian militant groups like Hamas, who prioritize brainwashing children to hate the Jews, not Israelis, the Jews, from birth, basically. When you wean children with that sort of hatred, of course they're going to grow up to believe that Israel is the enemy and their life's goal is to attack Israel. And it's tragic because the Palestinians are suffering because of this dogmatic ideology coming from the likes of Hamas. Israel's a small but powerful country, proportionally speaking. So, of course, it is going to defend itself. But I also think there is a huge amount of pro Palestinian propaganda online. I came across an interesting video earlier where a black South African politician actually was countering this narrative of the apartheid state. Put it this way, look at the situation for Arab Israelis. They can rise to become generals, judges, politicians. Can you see the same sort of plurality in many Arab states? No, you can't. You just can't. So Israel's not perfect, but it would be useful to make comparisons, certainly in the region, when people describe Israel as an apartheid state. Now, to get to the cusp of this particular unrest, Jerusalem. Obviously, it's come about from this new embassy being opened in the presence of Ivanka Trump and with a speech by Benjamin Netanyahu. Obviously, it was a controversial decision, but if you want to look at history when it comes to the Holy Land, because that is really the basis for most arguments, the fact of the matter is Jerusalem was the capital of the ancient Jewish kingdom of Israel. It's just a fact. I personally do favour a two-state solution, but was this the right move? To be honest, I've mixed views. In terms of the truth, in terms of historical, the right to Jerusalem, I would say that the Jewish people have a far longer right than the Palestinians do. Um, I mean, Jerusalem is the sacred spot for Judaism. It's something like the third or fourth in Islam. So that's worth mentioning. But the bottom line is, even if this embassy hadn't moved, Hamas's main goal is the destruction of Israel. That goes without saying. Every single peace attempt that has been made, their response has been to break that by firing rockets into Israel every time. And I'm not saying Israel is innocent. There have been occasions where IDF soldiers have shot unarmed people. That has happened. And it is tragic if there are civilians who are among these casualties. But I do not buy the line, Israel's killed 58 innocent civilians. These people were Hamas operatives who went there to cause violence. That's not peaceful. And I just feel when it comes to the Holy Land, it just seems to be a never ending cycle. This could end tomorrow if the Hamas leadership simply renounces violence. It will not do that. Israel's not entirely innocent. I don't, for example, agree with continued settlement building. I think that only escalates the situation. But Israel has a fundamental right to defend itself. Why is it those? And by the way, for Jeremy Corbyn, surprise, surprise, to turn around and immediately, without any sort of inquiry into the unrest, vilify Israel, it's really not surprising. This is a man who chaired the pro-Assad Stop the War coalition for years. Corbyn doesn't have a thing to say about Assad murdering thousands of Syrians, including, by the way, Palestinians within Syria. Yet he's very quick to vilify Israel. So it's really predictable, to be quite honest. It's utter hypocrisy, but I'll probably be perceived as an Israel stooge for this. So be it. So be it. You know, about 10, 15 years ago, I had the same mentality. Like Israel was a tyrannic regime, always punishing the Palestinians. But as time has went on, I've considered, well, ultimately, what do these Palestinian groups want? I'm not talking about the regular citizens who are basically blinded by their hatred because they've no other choice. From a very early age, that's what they're taught to believe. They are also, any Palestinian who takes a different line is seen as, they're killed basically. They're killed or punished or beaten. It's I think it's interesting because during the Gaza war in 2014, one of the rockets that hit Israel actually cut off the power supply for Gaza. So all these people are doing is hurting themselves. Hamas doesn't give a damn about the welfare of Palestinian civilians. If they did, they would be focusing on children's education. They would be focusing on trying to create a better society, not brainwashing 3 year olds to end up as suicide bombers. That's how I see it.